returned home, found a homeless mother with a child. Her secret left him in tears. After a grueling decade of working overseas to provide for his family, Marco finally returned home. The years had not been easy. He'd missed birthdays, holidays, and countless milestones. But he had saved enough to start a new life back in the Philippines, where he hoped to reunite with his family and rebuild what time and distance had stretched thin. As he stepped off the bus in his old neighborhood, things felt strangely different. The familiar streetlights flickered dimly, and many of the homes looked worn. Still, the air smelled of home, humid and earthy, with the scent of grilled street food nearby. He took a deep breath and began walking toward the house where he had last seen his wife and young daughter. Just before reaching his street, he noticed a woman sitting by a corner. Her clothes were dusty and torn, and she clutched a small child who looked no older than 5. Something about her posture, the way she shielded the child from the wind, tugged at him. He slowed down, unsure why. She looked up, and their eyes met. Time froze. "Joy?" he asked, his voice cracking. The woman gasped. Marco, it was her, his wife. 10 years older, gaunt, with hollow eyes, but unmistakably Joy. The child stirred and looked up at him, a small face, tired but curious. What happened?" he stammered, kneeling beside her. Tears welled in her eyes. "They told me you died, Marco, that your ship sank. I waited for years." He felt his heart drop. "No, I was in Saudi. My employer confiscated my passport. I couldn't leave and I couldn't contact anyone. I only escaped a few months ago." She sobbed. "Your parents, they moved away. I lost the house. I couldn't find work with a small child. I had no one." Marco looked at the child, a little girl. He saw his own eyes in hers. "She's mine?" he whispered. Joy nodded slowly. "I found out I was pregnant just weeks after you left." Tears streamed down Marco's face as he embraced them both. 10 years lost. So much pain. But in that moment, holding them, he felt a warmth he hadn't felt in years. Love, fragile but still alive. "I'm here now," he whispered, "and I'm never leaving again." Would you like a continuation or a version with their daughter, whom he now learned was named Leah, into a small local eatery nearby? He ordered food, water, and let them rest. Leah clung to her mother, shy but curious about her father. Marco couldn't stop glancing at her, overwhelmed by the thought that he had missed all her firsts. Her first smile, first steps, first words. Later that evening, Marco found a modest inn where they could all sleep. Joy hesitated, unsure if she could trust that he was really back for good. But the sincerity in his eyes reminded her of the man she once loved deeply. The next day, Marco used some of his savings to rent a small apartment and buy clothes, toys, and necessities for Leah. He also began the legal process to reclaim the land title of his late parents' property, which had gone into disuse but was still legally his. As days turned into weeks, the three began living like a family again. Joy started smiling more often, and Leah, now more playful and open, would run to Marco every evening when he returned from visiting local job sites. One evening, as they sat under the stars in the small backyard of their new home, Joy turned to him. "I thought I'd never see you again. I was so angry, then so numb, but now it feels like we're writing a new chapter." Marco took her hand gently. "I can't bring back the years we lost, but I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never feel abandoned again." Then Joy looked down, took a shaky breath, and said quietly, "There's something else you need to know." Marco froze. "What is it?" She glanced at Leah, who was chasing fireflies a few feet away. "A man helped me when I was alone. He gave us food, shelter for a while. I thought maybe he was the answer. But when he learned I was still hoping you'd return someday, he left." Marco nodded slowly. He felt a pinch in his heart, but also understood. "I don't blame you. You did what you had to do to survive. What matters is you never gave up on her or yourself." They sat in silence, watching Leah dance in the moonlight. And for the first time in over a decade, all three of them felt truly at peace. Would you like the story to continue? Months passed, and the small family began to thrive. Marco found steady work managing a construction crew for a local housing development. He was well respected, reliable, and known for his quiet generosity. With his earnings, he enrolled Leah in school, where she quickly became known for her bright smile and endless curiosity. Joy started a small food stall near the market, selling homemade snacks and meals. It wasn't glamorous, but it gave her pride and independence. People came not only for her delicious cooking, but for her kindness. For the first time in years, she felt seen. One afternoon, as Marco was helping Leah with her homework, a motorcycle pulled up outside their house. A tall man in a weathered jacket got off and stood by the gate, eyes scanning the home. Joy came outside and froze. It was him, the man who had once helped her. His name was Paulo. Marco saw her expression and instinctively stepped forward, his eyes narrowing slightly but calm. Paulo raised his hand. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I just wanted to see if you were okay." Joy stepped closer. "I didn't expect to see you again. I heard from someone in town that you were doing well. I guess I needed to see it for myself." Marco stepped beside her and extended his hand. "Thank you," he said sincerely, "for being there when I couldn't be." Paulo looked surprised but shook his hand. "You're lucky, not just because you got back, but because she waited." He looked at Leah from a distance and gave a small nod. "I'm heading north tonight," Paulo said. "Just take care of them. That's all I ever wanted." And just like that, he was gone. Later that night, Joy sat next to Marco on the porch. "He was kind to us," she said softly, "but I never stopped believing you'd come home, even when the world told me to move on." Marco put his arm around her. "I'm grateful he helped you, and I'm grateful you waited." They looked at the stars, no longer distant or unreachable, but a little closer now, like hope returning after a long, dark night. From that day on, their family story wasn't defined by separation or sorrow, but by survival, love, and quiet strength. Would you like the story to... Leah sat on the edge of the stage, her high school diploma in hand, her cheeks still wet from tears of joy. The crowd had already begun to thin, but her parents stood near the front, clapping louder than anyone else. Marco, now with graying hair and stronger lines on his face, stood proud, his arm wrapped around Joy, who beamed with the same fire she used to cook with at her stall, now a thriving little eatery known across town. As Leah stepped off the stage, they embraced her tightly. "You did it," Joy whispered. "Your papa and I couldn't be prouder." "Not just proud," Marco added. "In awe. You're everything we hoped you'd become." Later that evening, they celebrated with neighbors, teachers, and friends, people who had seen Leah grow from a shy, quiet girl into a confident young woman with dreams of becoming a social worker. But that night, as the music faded and guests went home, Leah sat beside her mother, staring up at the stars, the same ones they used to watch when she was small. "Mom," she asked gently, "what was it like before Dad came back, when we were on the streets?" Joy paused, then placed a hand on her daughter's. "It was hard, I won't lie, but I never felt truly alone, because I had you." Leah nodded. "I think about that a lot, about how lucky I am." Joy smiled. "Luck brought your father back, but love is what held us together until he did." A moment later, Marco joined them, carrying 3 mugs of hot cocoa, one of their new traditions. "Plans for college?" he asked with a grin. Leah laughed. "Helping people, that's all I know for sure," he nodded. "Then you're already on the right path." She looked at both of them, her parents, her heroes. They had lost so much, but somehow they had given her everything. And in that quiet moment, Leah made a promise to herself. She would carry their story forward, not as a tale of pain, but as proof that love can endure the impossible. The small community centre buzzed with energy, children laughing in the reading corner, mothers attending a workshop in the hall, and a handful of teens helping organise food donations. At the front of it all stood Leah, clipboard in hand, radiating calm and quiet leadership. After years of study and tireless volunteering, she had finally opened Tahanan, a safe space for women and children experiencing homelessness and hardship. It wasn't funded by the government or a wealthy NGO. It was built through years of saving, small donations, and relentless dedication. The name Tahanan meant home, and that's what she had always wanted to give others, the same way her parents had fought to give it to her. One afternoon, as she reviewed the centre's weekly schedule, a social worker approached. "There's someone here asking for you," she said. "Says he knew your mother years ago. His name is Paulo." Leah's heart skipped. She stepped into the reception area and saw him, a little older, thinner, a walking stick by his side, and a tired smile on his lips. "You must be Leah," he said. "I am. You're Paulo?" He nodded slowly. "I used to know your mother helped her when things were rough." Leah smiled warmly. "She told me about you. Often." "She did?" His voice cracked slightly. "She said you were one of the few who didn't expect anything in return. Just kindness." Paolo looked down. "I was never sure I did enough." "You did," Leah said gently. "You were a light in her darkest time, and people like you are why this place exists." He looked around, tears forming in his eyes. "Would you like to sit down, maybe have some coffee?" she offered. He nodded gratefully. "I'd like that." As they sat together, Leah felt something come full circle. This man who had once extended his hand to her mother now sat in her shelter, being cared for in return. Later that evening, she called her parents. Joy answered, her voice still warm, still strong. "You'll never guess who came to see me," Leah began. "Paolo." There was a pause, then Joy said, "Tell him thank you, and tell him he was part of why we made it." Leah did, and when Paolo heard, he wept. In that moment, the years of struggle, separation, and survival felt worth it. Their story, written in tears and sacrifice, had become something more. It had become hoped on, as it always does. But in a quiet neighborhood not far from where it all began, Marco tended a small vegetable garden in the yard of their modest home. Joy, now silver-haired but still full of fire, cooked breakfast in the kitchen while humming the same lullabies she once sang to Leah during their hardest nights. Photos lined the living room wall, Leah's graduation, the opening of Tahanan, and recently, a framed certificate. Outstanding Community Advocate Award. Leah Santos. That afternoon, Leah visited with her fiancé, a fellow social worker she met while volunteering in the mountains. They sat with Marco and Joy, laughing over coffee, sharing plans for a small wedding and a bigger future. As the sun set, they walked to the local park, where a bench stood with a small plaque, in honor of those who gave when they had little and believed when hope was thin, dedicated to Paolo. It was Leah's idea. Paolo had passed peacefully the year before, never asking for recognition, but never forgotten. Leah sat there quietly, the wind brushing against her face, her mother's hand gently resting on her shoulder. "I think he'd be proud," Joy whispered. "I hope so," Leah replied. "I just want to keep the chain going." As the stars began to appear, just like they used to when she was a child, Leah looked up and smiled. Their story had started in the shadows.